G'day listeners and welcome back to another episode of the Keeper League podcast. We're the AFL Fantasy podcast that doesn't talk about the superstars. We only talk about the lesser knowns and the players who are going to bring value to your draft and Keeper League teams. My name's Heff and today I'm joined by my good mate Lewy, another podcast favourite. How you going, mate?
Good, Heff. Yourself?
Yeah, not too bad. We had a nice little lunch last week, Thursday. So hopefully your boss isn't listening to this, but
No, that was my day off, thankfully.
Oh, so, good.
Nice little Thursday sit down lunch. Talk a bit of fantasy, which was good.
I finally got
JD was there as well.
Finally had a look at a few classic players and actually thought about that, which was kind of nice.
Yeah, you didn't have a choice with JD and I sitting there.
Exactly. So I thought I'd actually think about it. But good fun. Good to catch up. I feel like I've seen a lot of you lately. But how you been going? Been up to much?
No, well, not really, mate. Been obviously this week watching all the preseason games, so it's good to finally get a proper injection of the hit. So those unofficial practice games, they're nice, but
there's no stats.
They're 10:30 in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
There's 6 sides. It's just it's a little bit
round robin formats.
So to have the official practice games was good, and then I suppose we roll into a little bit of 2.0 next week, really, with that opening round. Sort of got 8 sides there, so that'll
potentially only 6.
Well, potentially 6. Well, potentially 4, really. I mean, is the cyclone just hitting that one particular?
Yeah, it's just coming in a straight line over Brisbane and missing Gold Coast.
It must be. I don't know. We'll see what happens there, but I don't know. Maybe this is a kick in the bum for the AFL just to scrap it. And
just highlights what's the point, doesn't matter. Get rid of it. Anyway, I saw that the Pod is back up and running again. You had a bit of a hiatus last year. How's that been going? You've been talking a bit of fantasy on that? Yeah,
we've been up and about since late last year. We've returned. We think we've got a few good weeks in us this year, so we should be all right. No, last year we just had some scheduling conflicts. Obviously, we just had the 3 of us, and we're extremely busy, and it became such a chure.
It's hard when one of you's in like a 3.5-hour time zone or whatever. Perth is.
Exactly. So we just had to step back, call it for a bit, and then we've revitalised. We've come in with a plan this year, and we're ready to hit the ground running in 2025. I think that's what we've done. We've pumped out a bunch of podcasts already, and I think we're all getting pretty excited for it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's getting heated up there. But you are a bit of a Keeper League connoisseur these days. You were only Classic back in the day, and then last year you were telling me you care more about your Keeper League side these days. So what's the go there?
Yeah, it's been a slow burn. It's been a slow burn. I was always big on my Classic, and then I was big on my my seasonal drafts, mostly because of football and things like that. Yeah. You're playing with your mates, but a couple of years ago I joined a keeper, dipped the toes in, and I went young. I went really young, and I think that's sort of what's helped me get hooked on it. Because I'm watching these young players turn into superstars before my eyes, and now I'm probably in about 4 or 5 now, and just absolutely love it. It's probably secretly my favourite format now. Yeah, no, it's hard to go past a good Keeper League, especially when you draft young and it takes a little while. But I remember last year you were in a prelim or something with your young team, so it kind of makes makes it pretty exciting when you're kind of going deep into finals with a team like that. So that will get you hooked if nothing else will, for sure. Just a few plugs at the top, and it's not even a plug because I'd probably be talking about this even if I wasn't a bit of a sponsorship deal with them, but the Keeper Fantasy platform, we had our draft on the weekend. I won't talk about the results too much because Kays and I are going to record a little thing on Thursday this week, which will go out on Monday next week, kind of recapping our draft and fighting over who are the better draft picks and paying out each other's picks and stuff like that, and probably our league mates too. So that'll be done later in the week. But drafting on the Keeper platform is an absolute dream. You done one yet? Yes. So I'm in one of my leagues has moved over to Keeper this year. And it's fantastic. I'll admit I was a little bit sceptical at first, moving 12 blokes and coordinating it all. It's all a bit of an uphill battle, but in terms of moving over, it was so easy. And then the drafting process, the resources that are on the site, they've really set the bar high here, which is what you'd expect from Ryan himself anyway. So
yeah, definitely.
He's sort of been doxing us a little bit too. I'm in a Keeper League.
I've noticed that. A few of your examples have gone up as photos and stuff like that.
we did a draft a couple of weeks ago, and it's a new site, so there's a few things that you have to iron out. And a couple of us just a little bit of feedback here and there, some constructive criticism, and then it gets posted on the updates on Twitter, and we see our league name there. So
it is a good advertisement for it, because I remember there was something that was a bit of an issue with the draft room, and you messaged me, which I passed on to Ryan. And again, for this platform, platform, it's just updated within, like, it was a matter of hours, whatever the issue was, wasn't it? Yeah.
Seriously, it was like within an hour.
Yeah, he'd fixed it and like done it. Whereas like, I saw other platforms still waiting for emails back after weeks type thing about certain issues that are going on. So like, it's just those little things, like bits and pieces, those little details and that bit of customer service, I think, that really sets Keeper apart. So it's been awesome finishing the draft. I'm really looking forward to the fixtures opening up. So making a bit of an equalised fixture for our league. The top teams play the top teams more often than the bottom teams. That's a cool feature that looks like it's in there, but it hasn't been opened up yet. So I'm looking forward to that, to do that. ChatGPT will have a bit of a job trying to work out the most balanced fixture for me, but that'll be a fun thing to do. The other brand I got to plug is the SC Ring. So I think it's supercoachchampion.com. I can never remember the URL, and I really should because they're paying me to actually talk about them. But there's a link in the description below if you want to check them out. They're the championship rings for your fantasy leagues. We're giving away 2. All the details for that are at the top of the episode, so make sure you go back and have a listen to that. We'll be giving away some rings next week, but if you're not a lucky winner come next week, you might want to fork out I think it's $99 for a ring, so it's not too bad, and they look pretty official and look like an NFL and NBA championship ring, so check them out in the description below. Anyways, we should stop waffling because it's going to be a pretty long podcast, I feel, with all the stuff that's happened on the weekend, so let's get stuck into it. First of all, I've got to mention one more thing. I've got to give a shout out to the coach of the Cheese Burglar, DeMeows, in this episode, because like they had their top up draft, and Fletch, I think the coach name is, he had to attend a wedding, so he left it to the ever reliable draft bot auto pick. But what he didn't realize is that when you go into the draft, you actually have to set it to auto draft, or you had to be queued up on the draft board or something like that. So here's what happened. In his first round, Fletch took Billings, then Laddams in the second round, Nick Newman, who's injured, Tom Mitchell, who's injured, Elliot Yeo, who's injured as well. But apparently, Louis, this isn't the first time it's happened to old Fletch here. He suffered before on the draft table a few years ago. I think it was 5 years ago. They mentioned an apparent system glitch. Saw him pick Sean Burgoyne at pick 3 overall. So I think their league's actually called the Silk Cup as a result. So big shout out to Fletch there. Sorry to hear about what happened to your draft, and you'll know for better. Or just don't make friends with people that have weddings in the fantasy season. I think that's probably more of the on draft day.
I love the idea of a 40-year-old Sean Burgoyne at pick 3. That's hilarious.
Anyway, so let's get stuck into the games because we got a lot to get through. Geelong versus Essendon is the first one. Jack Bowes was the first one that stood out to me. 96 points, had a midfield role. Do you think he's going to be less of a sub risk this year, Bowes?
You'd think so. He looked good. He did look good, and I think Geelong are in a bit of a transitional process now, and I think Jack Bowes, he fits that age profile. He'd be about between 25 and 27 now, so probably expecting him to come on a bit. I wouldn't expect him to be the sub. I think they might give him a crack this year, and he looked good to the eye. I thought he played plenty of midfield as well, and he's a highly rated player.
Yeah, the only issue is that
doesn't come on at Geelong.
Well, the only issue is that sub. Like, he's always looked good when he's not being subbed, but he's like in there so often, like in and out of the side, so it's frustrating. But I know hopefully that doesn't happen this season. Mitch Nevitt was another one, and this kind of goes to like with this whole podcast today. It's not always about points. It's about role, I think, because so many stuff gets shuffled around and stuff like that. So I don't really care about points that much, even though I'll mention how many they scored in certain points. I care more about role. And Mitch Nevitt, someone who got 50% CBAs. Do you see that changing at all come, Thursday night?
Not really.
No, neither.
No, the first practice game, he was in there pretty much as the main guy. The second one, pretty much one of the main guys, and you'd have to expect that's what's going to happen in round 1 as well. I think the whole preseason he's been there, you may as well give it a crack for a couple of weeks, and he's been applying his trade in the VFL for a number of years now. So
the only thing is, like, he's generally been an outside kind of winger type. First trial or first practice match, Bailey Smith played on the wing and went inside, and he didn't play this game. Do you reckon that's any concern there?
Maybe not. I think that Baz can play a similar role on the wing as well and come straight into stoppage.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if that pushes Nevitt out, that's all. But hopefully it doesn't, because I've picked him up in one of my leagues.
We've seen Geelong, they're happy to share it around.
Yeah, true.
So it's never going to be like an 80% that you might see at the Giants or at the D's. It's going to be more of like a 65-60, 55 spread type type deal, I think.
Yeah. A lot of people have been talking about Zach Guthrie throughout the preseason. Like, he's had back-to-back good scores in these games, 74 points. I don't see him not going around that this year, so he's a pretty decent pick for those people who are looking for that 75 to 80 average defender. I think he's going to be one of them. Ben Hobbs is the next one. He had a big game. He's got the forward status, which makes him probably a little bit more intriguing. Split between that mid-forward role, but it had a huge upfield and midfield time in the last quarter. But there were a few out. Like, by the end of the game, Merritt wasn't playing anymore. Caldwell wasn't playing. Parrish obviously didn't play the whole game. Who do you think out of him and Sardis gets the fourth spot for Essendon, do you think?
Well, I think Sardis, personally. Ben Hobbs probably brings a little bit what they've already got in there. Body. Whereas Sardis, he's probably more the highly rated pick as a junior as well in terms of what he was able to do. Ben Hobbs, he's a really interesting player for me, Heff. He's one that I firstly wanted at Port over Josh Sin, but he's in no man's land, isn't he? He's sort of that 4th, 5th midfielder. He can't break into Essendon, and he can't really play a second role, can he?
Nah, he's I just don't know how they squeeze him in. And when I first watched this game as well, I thought that Hobbs looked better to the naked eye, because I think just because of like the tackle numbers and all that sort of stuff, he was really in and amongst it. Plus, he had like that big end to the game, which kind of put him in front. Went back and had a look at some of the numbers and stuff like that, and the clearance numbers and all that sort of stuff. And Sardis is actually a pretty classy player in there. I just still worry about him with like Merritt, Caldwell, Parrish. Durham played 100% forward as well, scoring 75 points. There's 0% CBA. So, like, do you think that'll happen round one with Durham not playing midfield at all?
Yeah, well, it's interesting that Durham was moved, because Durham probably is that player that does have a second position that he can play effectively. So if they're really trying to paint themselves into a corner, then maybe they just want to force Sardis, Hobbs full-time mid and move some of these other guys out. I don't think that's necessarily a good idea, but...
So I guess the question I'm trying to ask you, Louis, is do you think there's a forward status incoming for Sam Durham? 0% CBAs in this game, 100% forward?
I would say there's, I'd say there's a good chance.
Good chance. Oh, I like that because I've got him in my team. So hopefully that comes on. Nick Bryan had 97 points from 49% time on ground, so he has to be the number one ruck going forward, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, right.
They'll still play Draper with him, though.
We wish, that's right. So,
but yeah,
I think they've got their chips in on Draper, don't they? So,
oh God, that's so annoying. Well, there's rumours that he's going to go to the Crows next year, so. Hopefully,
wouldn't be the worst move for him or the Bombers. Nick Bryan looked great, didn't he?
Yeah.
Was it 64 fantasy points in a quarter?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
massive.
Just rolling them over in the last, but it was really nice to see. So I think Nick Bryan's one that people have had circled for a year or two now.
Yeah.
Obviously a bit of a VFL pig there. So
I guess this kind of performance shows that he can put up a good score with Draper inside though as well. Because I don't think Draper was subbed out or anything. I think he was. Well, they might have been rotated a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think Nick Bryan played early.
Didn't play the first half.
Yeah. And then 64 points in the last quarter. So he's sort of he's done his damage in a bit of junk time there, but it's good potential.
Yeah, definitely. And the other one I loved in this game was Kako. He's not going to be really that impressive fantasy wise. 81 points from 4 goals. He won't be kicking 4 goals every week, but really exciting player to watch for
unbelievable.
Yeah. Let's move on to the Collingwood versus Richmond game. This one was a battle to watch just with the lopsided nature of it. I'm not sure we can read too much into this game really, except for like stream every player ever existing against Richmond. Could be a good tactic to follow. First one on the list is Patrick Lipinski. Been kind of like looking at this all preseason. That wing role, he played the mid-forward role last year and he didn't really score that well, but I think he can score better as a wingman. Like, look at what Josh Dacos has done on the wing for the last 4 years. It's like not like the role itself can't be fantasy friendly.
Yeah, Dacos is going about 95.
Yeah.
So...
But he's got the forward status, Lipinski. He's
got the forward status. I can see Lipinski as an 85 guy.
Same, yeah.
In the right role. He's had his moments, hasn't he? Like, he's got the pedigree to do it. It's just he's never found that consistency. He's one that I always take a swing for late in drafts, and he generally pays off. Like, he's not been a fantastic player, but when you've got forward status and you're pumping out 70s, 75s...
Yeah.
Fairly reliably, it's a pretty nice pick.
Yeah,
so
I think
there's upside there. That's nice.
I think he was down in the 60s average last year, but you're right. He does put up scores here and there that when he gets bulk midfield time. But I think if he's just got consistent wing, that's going to add 10 points upside to his game, I think. So I'd be pretty happy with Lipinski and if you've got him, especially as a forward. How Harry Perryman, his role was more midfield, and probably, I guess, the halfback line we saw at GWS had 20 CBAs. 20 touches, but had the 10 tackles in there. So that's going to be his role, isn't it? Like that enforcer.
Yeah, he's the defensive mid. Yeah. He pretty much sits at the back of stoppage on somebody else and gets plenty of cuddles, and then doesn't necessarily demand the ball in there. It's a little bit of a give it to Dacos.
Expect him to lose defender status at the end of the year?
Oh, you'd expect so.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. And Tim Membry is the other one. He's been a reasonable scorer in the past. Could be all right on the back of a good midfield, I think, if he's on the receiving end. St Kilda's kind of battled a bit, but I think he's been a 70 average in the past for a forward. You'd take that every day of the week. Another youngster that a lot of people are talking about is Ed Allen. Probably not encouraging to see only came on in the second half, but he did get some midfield clock in there, but probably not best 22 at this stage, do you think?
Probably not best 22. Personally, probably not one that I would stash either.
Yeah, he's not far off, I don't think.
No, he's ready to play. I'm just not sure that he shows enough for me.
It's the underage fantasy potential that everyone's hoping he lives up to. The only thing that's probably going for him is you've got Pendlebury, DeGoey, Mitchell, all kind of seemingly always injured or just old at the moment, like Pendlebury will retire at the end of the year type thing. There might be a hole for him.
He's a big boy, that Ed Allen, isn't he?
Quite tall.
He's quite tall.
Yeah.
So maybe it's a little bit of the... we'll see how he goes. But
yeah, if anything, he's a stash option for next year now, though. Yeah. And Reef McInnes had the halfback role. I'm not sure of the point share between Dacos and Houston, but what it's going to be. But the role's there, and it's been a fantasy-friendly role in the past. But he's probably one to think about because he's got forward status as well. Think about drafting Reef McInnes later on in drafts. On the Richmond side of things, Camden McIntosh, he had a good game, but he's someone that you could pick up super late for a bench option, but I don't know, I wouldn't be that reliant on him. Jack Ross is showing some signs of just natural progression, but I feel like he's been showing that for 5 years now. Do you think he could step up in the midfield?
Has a nice head of hair on him now, Jack Ross.
He kind of fluctuates. He used to have longer hair than shaved.
He does. It changes every time. But no, I think you probably hit the nail on the head there, Heff. I think he shows signs, but he never really gets it done, does he?
I would even if he has everything goes his way, I don't think I'd ever expect more than an 80 average, in his best season of AFL ever type thing. I don't think he's going to be a high accumulator. From
a keeper perspective, what are you thinking with the Tigers, Heff? Because there's going to be they had 7-8 kids come in this year. Next year is probably going to be similar. You can't score with 22 19-year-olds in your side. They're going to have some stalwarts and all that, but are they really stripping this back? Are they going towards sort of the Gold Coast rebuild, or
it's probably the most?
How does that influence?
It's probably the most drastic rebuild.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Someone I can't remember who told me. Maybe it was in the Discord or something like that. They said they were talking to an actual player from the Tigers, and their own words were, "We will be worse than GWS in their first year." Type thing.
Wow.
That was their opinion of it. And that probably shouldn't have got out. And I don't know can't remember who told me it and which player it was or anything like that. But that was apparently a player's opinion. So it's going to be a long slog. But even with when GWS, I remember that when they first came in, you were looking at players like Toby Green and going, this guy's going to be a gun one day. And that sort of stuff as well. You thought they were going to be a gun one day anyway. And you'd pick them up and they'd score reasonably well, So it's worth having a punt. It's just you can't expect any of them to really go, really big this year. And the other thing is as well, the younger, their midfield, for example, Taranto's not super old. He's still going to be around for a while. Hopper's still going to be around for a few years as well. So I can't see there being a huge uptick in any of those midfielders. What I can see is someone like Sam Banks going to the halfback line and scoring pretty well, just given that the ball's always going to be down there. Plus, they're going to play high possession because they're going to be so scared to give it to the opposition because they'll get belted by 150 points if they do. So there's a few things that for upside there. I think we saw, was it Luke Traynor in this game scored just because of purely because of that as well. So we're going to see bits and pieces of that happening. But I'm not too optimistic about them in the short term, that's for sure. Jaden Short, the exact same reason I just said. I think he's going to have a good season, Jaden Short, because Richmond just kept kicking the ball out and then it kept coming straight back in. But then they'll stem that bleeding by chipping it around. I think he had about a third of the kick-ins, and Collingwood only had 6 behinds kicked as well. So they kicked really accurately. So, yeah.
Captain option, I reckon.
Yeah, he's going to be up there. He's going to have quite a few points this year. And then, like I said, with Sam Banks as well, worth picking up because, with Floston maybe hanging up the boots in the next year or so. I think his contract's the end of 2026, but he's probably going to be the next guy to take over back there. So
yeah, he looked really good, and he's been doing his thing in the VFL with nice numbers for a while now too. So
got him with my last pick in my dynasty draft.
I'm interested in Classic this year.
Yeah, right.
So
Thanks,
I really rate him.
Yeah, I'm thinking about, because I'm not really taking it. I've not done any research. So I'm thinking about going with a few pods like Banks and I don't know if he will be a pod, but Lockie Ash and stuff like that.
Have a bit of fun. Just don't post your pods on X.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Well, I don't post much on X, to be honest. But
you'll get a bit of feedback on those.
I shouldn't say anything bad about X. So I got a message during the week saying I was too political last week. So for saying X is bad. That. So yeah. Anyway, Hawthorn versus Western Bulldogs. Tom Liberatore looks like he's still got it, but I reckon he's a player you can just get cheap because of his age.
That's who I actually got the feedback on, was Tom Liberatore.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of him. He's a fantastic scorer when Treloar's out of the side, Bont's out of the side.
Yeah, and that's going to be for a while now.
And he's just the number one guy in there. So, if I'm talking from a Classic perspective,
he'd be priced pretty low.
He's priced at 88. I think he can push 100. So, in terms of a keeper perspective, I think Tom Liberatore is someone that'll go late and someone that you can pick up and be a really handy sort of back end of your midfield bench there.
And even if you're trading, probably people aren't going to trade him now, but if you have traded him in the off season just as a top up midfielder, M6, M7 type thing, you're laughing right now because he's going to have a huge start to the season. Sam Davidson's the other one, on the wing and kind of pushed up forward as well. I reckon he's one to take a punt on in Keeper League drafts. I think he's going to be in every Classic side come next week, but he looked good the previous week versus Essendon as well. So he's had 2 good showings and he's got the forward status, so he's probably someone worth looking at as well. The other one that looks all right is Joel Frazier. He's got that halfback distributor role that really looks like it's actually going to happen. I heard Bailey Dale played in the VFL match though, so that means he's probably going to be right for round 1. Are you still confident on someone like Frazier if someone like Dale is, and later on in the season when Johannesson comes back in, you still confident on someone like that?
Less so with Dale in the side. JJ, by all reports, is a little while away.
He's going to be ages, yeah.
Yeah, yep. No, I'm a big fan of Joel Frazier. I think that young player has got natural development in him. He's got probably a greater role this season, I imagine. I don't think it hurts at all that Dale missed last week. I think it gives the coaches an opportunity to say, oh, hey, hang on, Joel's going all right in that position as well. So, look, it's not as if halfback is just this one position. One halfback goes 110 and the other doesn't touch it. Yeah. So I think Dale, what is he, about a 90, 95 guy?
Higher 90s last year, yeah.
So I think Joel Frazier can push 80.
Yeah, well, I hope that's the case because I did pick him up with my first pick.
And to be honest with you, if he's playing halfback and he's actually worth his salt, he should be averaging 80, because then that means the players want to give it to him. If they're not giving it to him, there's no point having him in the side.
And he kind of did it in a few games where he played there last year as well. So he kind of scored those 80s as well. So I think it was some 70s and 80s around there.
I think he starts with, is it the Pies?
No, I think Paul got them.
Pies round 2, maybe.
Yeah, maybe that's, So I'm not sure where they got round 1. But Riley Sanders as well, just talking roles.
North, they got North.
Oh, beautiful. That's right, they do too, because it's English versus Cherry. That's right, I got Cherry, the C on Cherry for that week. Riley Sanders is the other one. Just again, talking roles, it looks real. No Treloar in there. No Richards. Bont is gone as well. So Riley Sanders is just going to be starting in their midfield. No doubts there. James Harm's got enough midfield time. He's listed as a forward. Probably not in their best side, or maybe close. I don't know. But they got Matthew Kennedy also, so maybe he's not as kind of lucrative. But he does have that forward status, so he's worth a pickup later on in drafts. Sam Darcy, 83 from 3 goals. Obviously, I think he's going to be one of the better key forwards in the comp. But what do you think he's going to? What do you think his consistent average is over the next 5, 6, 7 years?
Oh, it's a good question, but where is he going to settle over the 5?
I think it's going to be in the 70s, which is awesome. It's like Charlie Curnow
position.
Key forward until Tim English, I reckon. So it depends.
And then into the ruck, you think?
Don't know. He's pretty valuable at forward. He's so good at taking big grabs and stuff like that, and he kicks pretty well. I think he's more valuable as a forward than he is as a ruck.
What's a Harry Mackay go at?
80, low 80s. Yeah,
I'd put him at about that.
Yeah, I reckon that's the case. I was thinking Curnow, Mackay, that kind of range where you got the better key forwards in the comp. They go at high 70s, low 80s. I think that's kind of his peak, I reckon.
Yeah, he needs ruck time to push that up.
And then Harvey Gallagher, my boy, he had a nice role. But But yeah, it's just that we've talked about Dale coming back as well. Like that might squeeze him out. But yeah, like he put up some monster scores as a junior playing this role. Like I think it was legit. It was about 6 weeks worth of at least 120 plus doing this role.
What did Gallagher score in this game? Do you know?
High 60s, I reckon.
High 60s.
But he seemed to go off for a fair bit chunk of the third quarter as well. So
Fraser went 97.
Yeah.
And Cleary had a good game too.
He was more on the wing, but yeah.
And went about 80.
Yeah.
So I think that's good news for,
so do I.
For Fraser that we spoke about earlier.
Yeah, and I hope Gallagher can kind of hold that role as well because that is his best fantasy position. He's the reason I'm so high on him is because of those underage scores playing as a halfback flanker. So hopefully that continues. On to the Hawks. James Worpel, like I just think if you're getting him as an M6 or 7, which he's kind of floats between bench and M7 in my side, and I'm pretty happy with that because he's the guy who can push 100s like he did in this game. And Massimo D'Ambrosio scored 107 points as well. I think he's going to be one of the better wings purely because that disposal is too good for them not to get the ball into his hands at all times possible. So he's another one I like. Josh Battle, do you think he can kind of maintain that mid-70s defender scoring?
He looked good. What did he end up scoring on the weekend?
I think it was in the 70s.
It was in the 70s. So based on what I saw, I would probably put him there as well. He looked like Josh Battle. He's slotted in nicely there alongside a Tom Barras as well. So
yeah,
I think there'll be a lot of intercept marks up for grabs in that Hawks line.
Yeah, agree. Harry Morrison's had a really solid preseason just playing on the wing. Just depends what they do with Ward, but I think Morrison's actually ahead at the moment, and we know he's a guy he can average 80, close to, if he plays each week. And same with Ginnivan, I think he's going to be very similar to what he was last season. I wasn't sure if there'd be like a regression. Last year was only a first-year bump, but he gets so far up the ground and kind of gets involved. I
think he's such a good keeper pick.
Yeah, I wanted to pick him, but he went like 2 picks before me in the draft.
And he's got a ceiling too, where we find a lot of these small forwards, ceiling might be.
He's got that hunger, where he wants to kick a bag and really get in the face of.
He just wants the ball.
Yeah, exactly. On to the Brisbane versus Adelaide game on Thursday night. Crows celebrated like they won the flag, and Brisbane just didn't care at all. But you can tell I'm bitter that the Crows are actually probably going to be decent this season. But anyway,
better than us, mate.
Yeah, maybe. Jasper Fletcher's the first one I want to talk about there. He had the 79 points. I copped heat in the Discord because I said I'd rather pick up Jasper Fletcher than Dan Curtin in fantasy
really?
Like every day of the week, and copped a bit of heat in the group. Just
recently?
Yeah, it was like 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago. Yeah.
You're joking.
It was before the practice matches.
He's come on, Jasper. He looks another player.
He's classy.
He looked like an 18-year-old last year, and this year looks like a seasoned wingman.
Yeah. The only issue is like you've got Berry, you've got McCluggage, and you've got him.
It's going to take a bit of time.
Yeah,
pretty much any option at the Lions is probably a couple of years away.
Because they've added Levi into the midfield mix too.
But no, Jasper Fletcher, I think he's an absolute ripper stash if you can afford to do it.
100%. So like might be still another year away from scoring well, but really looks comfortable at the level now. And like I said, McCluggage and Berry score well on the wings. No reason why he can't either.
And McCluggage, every chance he goes inside once some of these blokes in kneel and retire, or just someone gets injured as well. Yeah, injured.
Then Levi Ashcroft, don't have to talk about him, but he looked the goods in the midfield. I think he averaged in the 70s, I think it was. Scored in the 70s. So
he's going to be, he'll be better than his brother.
Oh, I hope so, because I picked him up in the Destiny draft.
He'll be better than his brother.
Onto the Crows, the Isaac Rankin role, the midfield role, looks real. Do you think he can push top 5 forward this season?
I would have thought so. Yeah. What are we putting as a top 5 forward? 95?
Last year, I think the top one was 95, wasn't it?
Okay. So I
think he's going to average in the 90s.
Yeah, I think he goes 95 if that midfield role holds. I've got a few question marks over the tank.
Yeah.
And how the body sort of holds up. I wouldn't be surprised if that midfield usage sort of declines over the season. Just because he's had a lot of soft tissue injuries, he's never played full time.
He's also pretty valuable at forward.
He's very valuable.
If they can't score, they can put him up there and get dangerous as well. Which sometimes clubs do need that get out of jail card when you can't really get anything on the board. Yeah, and he's one of those guys.
Exactly. So I think Rankin's probably a 95 max guy, but he might start really, really well. Just get off the chain with clubs not expecting it.
Yeah, I reckon he's a 90 to 95 kind of guy, this season. So, pretty confident in that just with the midfield role we've seen. Jake Saligo, I'm confident in him just because, it looks like it doesn't matter where he plays, whether he's on the wing, inside, outside, he'll just score. He looks like he's gone another level this year, so I'm pretty confident on Soligo. Player again, like I mentioned this in the internal trial that they played, but I thought Josh Worrell was quite good in defence, like takes kind of intercept marks. And the Crows really don't mind a chip around either. You saw, what's the big Irish defender's name again?
Keane.
Yeah, that's right, Keane. He scored pretty well in games last season, just getting on the back of those switches and +6s and stuff like that. So, yeah, he's one that I'm looking at there. What do you think of Luke Nankervis' game off the half-back line?
I love Luke Nankervis.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah, he's someone that I try to go really late in drafts. The lid's not really off with him, and personally, I don't blame coaches for not taking it off, but I think he's got a lot of fantasy potential back there.
So do I. He plays a perfect role for fantasy. He was on the wing a bit last year, but look, since Cummings come in, Scholl's going to play that role as well. Doesn't look like he's going to be up there. Sligo's been pushing out to the wing as well. Do you think he's best 22 come round one, Nankervis?
He's probably right on the edge.
So close.
He's right on the edge, and it's not a knock on him. He's just a strong side. I think he'll be in there.
Laird going back to defence really hurts him because I think it pushes him out. But
it does.
He'll be close. Like he'll play games this season, and there'll be games where he scores okay, and then hopefully he can just cement his spot. I think. James Peatling, what do you think? What's your take on his role? Everyone was very hot on him early on.
I think he's a awesome mid forward.
Yeah.
I never expected him to come over to the Crows and be this, massive CBA mid. They've already got them. And that was pre-Laird, of course. But he's just such a weapon up forward. Like, he's a seriously good player, James Peatling. And I think at the detriment of fantasy sides, he's probably wasted if he's a full-time midfielder. I think he needs to split that time and start putting some pressure on the scoreboard. So... from that role that I saw, I think he's probably an 80 to an 85 guy. He's probably going to pop a couple of weeks here and there. I think he'll pick up forward status though. So
that's handy.
If he's probably going to be going a little bit higher than you'd like as a pure midfielder. But if you were going to be the one to draft him, picking up that forward status and going an 85 is going to be very, very handy. Yeah,
initially I was thinking he might see an uptick in midfield time just because, like, coming from GWS, going to a new club, I thought they might have targeted him for a reason. But, yeah, I agree. I do think he does look like a mid kind of forward for them, but that's going to be good for fantasy coaches if he gets that forward status as well. And, again, Sid Draper's going top 3 or 4 in most top-up drafts. Only played the second half. Do you reckon that's managed because he's had the back issues, plus he's played 2 full games the week prior, or do you think he's kind of not best 22? What do you think?
Nah, it's
managed. Yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah, load management, because everyone in group chats, because Kay's traded his pick 4 in the draft, which probably wouldn't have gone in the end. I thought when he traded it, everyone thought Sid Draper would fall to pick 4. Ended up Jagger Smith going there because of the injury.
So Kays went Jagger at 4 instead.
No, he traded pick 4.
I traded pick 4.
Yeah, traded away for a first rounder next season because he didn't rate any of he rated Levi and Jagger, but didn't want to pick between Langford and so he's probably going to have a higher pick, like probably pick 1 or 2 next season as a result. So that was his theory behind it. I think it's madness, but it's probably turned out okay now because he would have ended up with Jagger, which is pretty damn good. But it's just not this year.
Yeah, of course.
And if you trust him coming back from injuries. But anyway, managed to score 42 from 39% time on ground. He was awesome in the second half. So, yeah.
Yeah, he's one that you never hope for injuries, but if one were to occur, I really want to see Sid Draper have a crack at it. I think he could win the Rising Star. He's such a good young player.
It's good enough, that's for sure. Then the GWS versus Carlton game, moving on to that one. We tipped Finn Callaghan for a breakout. I was a bit concerned after last week. I thought he kind of looked disinterested or the head dropped a little bit or something. I was expecting more. He kind of gave it this week, don't you think?
Looked great.
Yeah.
He was presenting everywhere. +6s galore.
Yeah. I think he ended up with the 90. Didn't quite crack the ton, but yeah.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I was sort of wavering on Finn Callaghan. He's sort of got to his peak price before. Obviously, he hasn't peaked as a player.
Yeah.
But it started to decline. Maybe it's not going to happen. I think it's spiking back up now. He looks like he might be that second midfielder at the Giants, and if he can push 95 to 100, which to be honest with you, I think he can do comfortably.
I think he's got it in him. Yeah.
Yeah, enough of that role. Then lock and load.
Especially with Green out in the early rounds.
How long is he out for? Is it?
I can't remember, but I think it's a while. Yeah,
a while.
Yeah, well, a few weeks.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. The other one is Lockie Ash. I think there's a breakout incoming for him, even considering him in Classic for mine. So
finally,
yeah.
Do you know how many spots I've wasted on him for years and years and years? It's finally happening.
No, I think it's going to happen this year, just because like the circumstances. I guess Perriman going. There's no one really off that halfback line as much.
Do you know if you took?
He's got Whitfield though.
Do you take kick-ins? Just a couple.
I think it was pretty split between him and Whitfield, I reckon.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
I just thought he was a better player than Whitfield on the day, personally.
Yeah. He kind of looks a bit more dangerous with the footy in hand. So hopefully that means he gets a bit more of it.
He was a pig too as a junior, if I recall.
Yeah, I think that's why a lot of people went so high on him in drafts. Callum Ward was playing on the wing and scored 80. So like, I always see him as like a midfield stuffer, like you chuck him in your M7 and you go pretty good. Heard a rumour though, well, I don't know, I think this is true, that he wasn't supposed to play this season. He was supposed to retire and they offered him a one-year deal. He took it, but his family's already moved back to Melbourne. So he's spending the year in Sydney on his own. So that's a very good sign, I think, to maybe even like a mid-season retirement, like miss your family too much, go home type thing.
Maybe. I heard something similar.
Yeah.
That he was going to retire, but I can't remember, so it's probably a shit chat. But
yeah,
there was a reason he couldn't retire.
Maybe.
It was a really niche reason.
But I heard his family just said, well, stuff you, we're going back to Melbourne because we're sick of living in Sydney. So
it might be when you're 36 years old, you got a fair bit of pull. You can fly back to Melbourne and go say hi to wifey. But
all the more reason to maybe just be a bit more cautious with picking him.
The cliff's got to come, Heff.
Yeah.
You can only score 80 for so long. What is he, 36 now?
Yeah.
So
he's so close to retiring.
He might be a super sub. Imagine him coming on cement head 3/4 time. And
I'd only be picking him in like within the last like 2 or 3 picks in your draft. I wouldn't be going any higher than that though with those circumstances. James Leake is someone we've talked about all pre-season. He ramped up his midfield time this week and scored 66. I think he's listed as a defender in fantasy.
Yep.
Is he someone you're thinking about?
Yeah, he's probably one that I'll put on my bench if he plays. I think he should play. He had the most CBAs on the weekend.
Yeah. Cody Angove is the other one. He had a big game the week before. Saw less minutes this week. Could be a management thing though, as well, as we mentioned before with Draper. But I guess last week we saw Kelly push to the outside, to the inside because Angove was playing on the outside. Kelly was now on the outside, so Canelio came back in, scored okay, but low time on ground. But like Canelio is going to have to play a lot of midfield with Green out because their midfield looks really shallow, like at the moment.
Yeah, it's flipped on its head.
Yeah, really has. Without Peatling, it's really kind of hurt it a bit. So I think Canelio is going to get a fair bit of time in midfield. It's just that like, does Kelly play inside or outside as a result? Really depends on what they do.
Inside on the weekend, and he looked good in there.
Yeah,
well.
Depends what
directing the troops.
It depends what happens with Angove as well, I think. But if they play him on the inside or outside come season. But yeah, hopefully they use Angove on that wing. Harry Ralston is the other one. 23% time on ground. We were talking about him in the preseason. Don't think he will be in the round zero plans if that's the case.
He'd have to be close now, wouldn't he?
Well, I was thinking with the exact midfield situation, and he looked good. The thing is, like, he's only played a quarter, 2 quarters, I think, coming up. He hasn't played full games yet, I don't think. So, yeah, it's a bit worry if you're an owner because I think a lot of people thought he might be breaking into the side. Onto the Carlton side of things, Lucas Camporeale. It's Camporeale. They were talking about it in the commentary, not Camporelli. But yeah, I thought this guy would be miles off, like so far away from getting a game at Carlton, given they were, if injuries didn't hit him, they were probably a top 4 fantasy last year. And his brother was supposed to be the better player, Ben, out of the 2 of them. But yeah, came into this game and absolutely racked them up on the wing. I think it's going to come down to him and Jackson Binns for the last of that wing spot because, like, if you think about it, Hollands has gone into defence. Doherty came on at half-time and played in the midfield. So I think they were trialling Binns 1 week, Camporeale on the other. Who do you think's in the side come round 1? Or neither?
Both
of them. Nice.
Both. There might be a prime sub-candidate on that wing there.
Well, most clubs do rotate 3 or 4 on the wings anyway. Like they'll go, wing, back, bench type thing, or wing, forward, bench type thing as well. So no reason they can't do that as well. But given the younger players haven't played a lot of footy, maybe there will be a sub.
I think you'd give the nod to Binns and then you'd have to give it to him first. That's the reason why they've moved Hollands back to half back is so they could accommodate Binns on that wing. So Campo-Reale might be just slightly behind Binns, but if he keeps that form up, then nudges ahead.
Yeah, that's it. I wore his old man's number when I played for Carlton at halftime at the old AAMI Stadium back in the day. So
showing your age. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. Nick Haynes, 83 points, plays that hybrid between the key and intercept defender. Kind of does that rebounding work as well. He's always been a player that's scored well when he does play, and I think he will be a regular for Carlton this season. So, yeah, he's one to look at there. Ollie Lord, from what I've seen so far, I've really liked of him, but I'm just not sure he's best 22 just yet. But it just continues to show good signs for the future. I think he had 55% of the CBAs and had 81 points.
If I had a big list, he's high up the list of ones that I'd stash.
Yeah, I think he went late in our draft, so that's a good stash option. Ollie Hollands looked comfortable as across half-back, scored 81 points, so the breakout season's coming there. And those Doc owners, he only played the second half, but went into the midfield, so I think that's going to be his role. Because I think Geordie said last week there was an interview where he said he'd be shocked if he's not starting midfield round 0, 1, whenever they're playing. So, yeah, I think Doherty's got that role sewn up there as well. To the Gold Coast versus Sydney game. What do you think of Joel Jeffrey off the half-back line coming for them? Did you see much of this game?
Yeah, I saw the first half. I like the look of him. He's someone who's been sort of touted to take that half-back role for a number of years now.
Well, he had the forward...
Stater was so keen on him.
He had the forward status last year, and then he was supposed to go to half-back and rack him up, but he just didn't do it. But
did he break into the side, or is he just
did break into the side eventually, yeah. But then, like, in this game, 4 marks, 4 tackles, 19 kicks, 16 handballs. And the thing I was worried about the week before, because he kind of looked good the week before, but there was no Rioli last week. Mm-hmm. And then this week he had Noble and Rioli in there. Will Powell is the player that was pushed out of defence to make way for Joel Jeffrey. He moved up to a wing on the weekend. I don't know if he can trust his scoring, and without the forward status, that was half the appeal of him last year. But he's someone that could play and score okay on the halfback line.
He had some kicking duties, so you have to take a positive from that. If
definitely.
They're trusting him with that responsibility. So
yeah,
and that's keeping in mind that Rioli didn't take a single one. Well, I think he took one actually.
Yeah.
So
yeah. And then Will Power, just like I mentioned, he's been pushed up to the wing, so he scored 82 there, though, so not too bad. John Noble looks like he's just going to be the exact same player as he was at Collingwood, just with more job security. Scored 95 points in this game. Ben Ainsworth been playing on the wing for the last part of last season and was a bit last week, but probably played a bit more forward this week, and I think he scores better as a forward because he gets on the end of more goals up there. So he's just a good best 22 player for Gold Coast, who's a F5, F4 kind of option.
He'd be getting up on games for Gold Coast, wouldn't he?
He'd be probably one of their most played. No, I don't know. Yeah, he's been there a while now.
He just seems to be best 22 constantly, and you tend to forget about him, don't you?
Yeah, definitely. The other one, I was just onto more Gold Coast players. Jared Witts. Just the only interesting factor about this, he was just used over Moyle in this game with the Reed backup. So I think that's a fair indicator what's going to happen round 1 for those coaches out there that are wanting the Moyle breakout. Might not be best 22 just yet.
Still not going to happen.
Yeah, sucks. And Bailey Humphrey was the third most at third used at the centre bounce attendances. Put up the 64 points. He's got the forward status. No Took or Flanders in the side. Do you think he's someone who could break into that midfield mix a bit more frequently come the real stuff?
I think he can get an improvement, but I don't think he's going to be in that top 3 mix. So he's probably not going to be doing what we need him to do. He was a bit of a disappointing scorer last year, even in that forward role without the CBAs.
Just needs that midfield role. I'm hoping just through natural progression or a few injuries he can kind of take it over this year, because last week he looked really good when he was given the responsibility in there. Looked like a bit of a beast that you couldn't be stopped. And like me and Geordie were talking to last week, I wouldn't be surprised if someone like Took kind of rotates with him forward as well a bit more.
I'll tell you how high I was on Bailey Humphrey too at the end of last season.
Yeah.
Also the season before, 2023. I delisted Isaac Heaney in December, so I didn't know he was going to be playing midfield, and kept Bailey Humphrey. So I had to watch Isaac Heaney go at 110 all year, while Bailey Humphrey, I think I just cut him. So
that sucks.
That was great.
You've always been a big Heaney man as well. That sucks. Anyway, on to the Sydney side of things. Matt Roberts, people were worried last week because he didn't score that well, but just put up a huge number this week, 112 points. So
he's their guy, isn't he?
He's the halfback distributor.
Yep, he's Jake Lloyd.
Yeah, well, Jake Lloyd scored pretty well. I think he was the top scorer for most of the game. He slowed late. Do you think he's going to be better under Cox, and do you reckon like last year was just a blip, or do you think just that wing role is not going to be good for him?
Oh, I think he's just fading back into the background a little bit. A bit more of a role player, team player sort of thing.
Yeah.
He had his time in the sun at halfback. Just natural regression, really.
Yeah. James Jordan put up 106 as well. Like the preseason, he's just been playing on that wing, but like just rolling in as like another midfielder and just follows the footy around. Like, do you think that's real under Big Cox, or do you think
it's going to be?
He's tagging next week and scoring 40?
It's hard to trust. Like James Jordan is probably like the prototype footballer that I would expect to just smash the preseason. Outside player. Maybe a little bit fringe or not. Quite sure of his spot, just trying really hard out there. So
yeah, but then go and be the best tagger in the competition like a week later. It's probably the way. Like, because he's super fit. Like, he has to be to kind of keep up with everyone and stuff. And he run all day type thing. And I think he can smash a wing out there.
Those sorts of players for Sydney, and they've had them for like the best part of a decade. They've just got great role players that play a really good sort of cog in their system. And I think James Jordan can spike, but he follows the team way, and it sort of affects his fantasy average.
Do you think Angus Sheldrick is going to be a feature come round 0?
Or
94 points in this game. He looked really good in the 2 preseason games I've watched.
What sort of feature?
Like just inside mid?
Inside. Yeah. Top. I think he'd be top 3.
I mean more so. Yeah. Do you think he's best 22 more than anything?
No, he's best 22. Yeah. I think he was probably right on the edge.
Yeah. We just didn't play a game last season.
Injuries.
Yeah.
And got a bit of preseason hype. It was all building, and by all reports, he's been absolutely tearing it up in the midfield in the preseason. So a couple of injuries open up his spot.
Well, Mills is out, obviously.
Yeah, so. Mills is the one, and then Goulden just the other day.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
a sprinkling of CBAs in comparison, but no, I think they'll give Angus Sheldrick a crack. It's now or never, isn't it? If you don't give him a crack now, he's going to piss off at the end of the year for nothing.
Yeah.
Or you give him a crack, he shows a bit, and maybe you get something in return, or he repays the faith back to you. So, big fan of Angus Sheldrick, and hopefully this is the year, because he's another one a little bit like the fella before I mentioned. I've just been holding him for years and years and years, and never quite happens.
Yeah, hopefully he can just grab a spot and just run with it. That's the key, I think, to someone like him breaking into the side. And then Riley Bice had he was one of the draftees, I think mature age draftee. He's a Werribee product, I reckon. Had 59 points from 58% time on ground. And talked him up in the draftee guide. I'm a big fan of him. I think he features in my rookie ranks as well, even though he's a mature age. The only knock on him, I think he just looked a little bit lost in terms of like running patterns and where he should have been on field. Like, so he's probably not at AFL level just yet, even though he scored pretty well, but he's definitely got fantasy potential. So he's one I'd be stashing away. I think in the draftee guide I said Jake Lloyd 2.0 or something like that, or the next Jake Lloyd for Sydney. So yeah, wait a few years on him. Or probably don't need to wait a few years, but just wait till he kind of learns to play at AFL level, and then he could be okay. Port versus St Kilda game. As a Port Adelaide man, were you a bit happier with this performance?
Oh yeah, it was a good result. It was absolute smashing in the end. It was
more for me like just that there was less bombing on heads. Looked like really high possession in the back line. But we'll talk about Port in a second. We'll move on to the Saints first up. So Darcy Wilson, 71 points. I think Geordie and I were both very keen on seeing him in the midfield a bit more this year, but then he was kind of forward in the first half, wing in the second half. But there was a few weird things with St Kilda. I think because they were getting smashed, they were just trying stuff.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Like Wangan and Miller, I went into the inside mid, like got CBAs. Travalia went as an inside mid. Like I don't see that happening come round 1. So like Darcy Wilson, I think it's just kind of a reliable player that they can throw into a few different spots and see how he goes. Don't think he's going to get that half back role maybe that we were probably hoping for. That's all. Might be forward wing kind of thing.
Yeah, no, there's no room for him at halfback.
Yeah. Hugh Boxall, another draftee I was pretty big on in the draftee guide, had 66 points. Playing that mid-forward role. Looks like he's one to stash for the future. Hugo Garcia looks like he has a bit of role in the midfield, and they're another one. Their midfield looks really shallow. Like Marcus Winhager doesn't look like he's going to be a midfielder for them. 0 CBAs. Played forward and defence, like kind of switch between. Again, like I don't know if they're trying to find a role or just doing weird shit because they're getting smashed. But I think with Hugo Garcia, though, it's just positive to see that he's getting a midfield role, and he could be that kind of play the third fiddle to maybe McRae and Steele, maybe a bit more. I'm not sure. But I think you're probably waiting just till Philippou or someone comes back to kind of help out in there. And another stash option I really liked as a junior was Isaac Keeler, 198 centimetres. He was a ruck, but I think they've been playing him defence for the last few years. Just a very athletic player. Not sure it's going to translate to fantasy scoring one day, but he just did some nice things in this game. On to Port. Like I mentioned before, like just a lot of marks in defence. Like I think like Miles Bergman had 9 marks. Logan Evans, I think, had over 10. Jace Burgoyne had over 10. Jack Lukosius had 9 marks, kind of floating between forward and defence. Jeremy Finlayson was the biggest one. He had 13 marks back there. Like he's obviously gone back to cover the absence of Zerk Thatcher and Asaba, and I have no idea why we haven't done this sooner, really. Haven't really needed him that much as a forward the last few years, but I think it's indicative just of the new game plan more so than anything. Like I think we're going to play a lot more high possession in defensive half just to kind of suck the opposition forward and then try to kind of create that overlap by going over the top. Do you think there's like Porter actually playing a fantasy friendly game plan for defenders?
Yeah, it's a good point. I hadn't considered Heff. Perhaps so. Yeah, because they've stated that they don't want to bomb it inside 50 on the heads. Maybe that's their way. They go, okay, well, we don't necessarily have the cattle, but we've got some athletic types.
Yeah.
Draw them in and then run. Almost do the soccer offside. Yeah. Let's catch them and
it's like the slingshot.
Get out
it's the slingshot footy, I guess, type thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
kind of creating it yourself though, like not relying on intercepting the ball and then going back the other way. More so about like kind of sucking the players closer to up the field and then kind of going from there.
So how sustainable is it? I know Essendon's defensive group, they've got a ridiculous amount of marks sort of on average between them each week.
Yeah.
This is one out the box clearly, but who do you see sort of being that main guy back there? I really liked the look of, I think they want Logan Evans.
Yeah.
Whether he's ready, I'm not sure. I think Burton, is he fit?
We didn't play on the weekend.
He didn't play on the weekend. I think he might be one that sort of takes that Jeremy Finlayson role, so maybe that's a red herring. But
yeah, maybe.
Where are you sort of seeing it sit here? Who's the main distributor? Or is it all just sort of spread across?
Yeah, admittedly, I was at that Pirate Life Festival, so I didn't see much of after quarter time. But in terms of distribute, I think Logan Evans and Kane Farrell probably are going to be the two. I think they're going to see the biggest uptick since Houston have gone. But I just think the game plan overall is going to be pretty friendly for all of them. I think there's just going to be a lot of marks back there chipping around, waiting for the right time to attack instead of, it used to be run and gun and just go as soon as possible. I think it's going to be a bit more calculated and kind of fighting the right times to attack with Port this year. So
that Miles Bergman, he's gotten a lot of hype off the back of this.
Contract year as well.
Contract year, but personally, I think he is rated by Port as very good defensively, and I think that's going to hamstring him a bit.
Yeah, I do agree in some respects, but also he's a very good attacking player as well, so hopefully he can just kind of get on both sides and do both. Sam Powell-Pepper, we talked about Jack Lukosius as well, just kind of played between back and forward. He's another one that had a lot of marks as a result of the game plan. Sam Powell-Pepper played that high half forward role. He just do what he did a couple of seasons ago where he pops up with 70s and 80s, but then probably goes 60s and 50s in between. But forward status, good late pickup, I think, coming off that ACL. He'll drop a bit of value. And the Rat, our boy, 46 points from 35% time on ground. Won't be best 22, but when he plays, which will happen, I think, he will just score okay and be a good kind of streamer in when you late pick up in your draft in your keeper leagues, I think. Not much more than that. Onto this other glorious game, West Coast versus North Melbourne. They really treated us in this pre-season with some quality matchups.
Like I said before the show, scheduling conflict for this one. So I was quite happy
conveniently
to skip out on this.
Well, what I saw, Liam Baker had the 83 points, was in the defensive half for the first half, kind of went forward a little bit more in the second half. I don't know, do you think it's going to be like Richmond again where he kind of pushes between the two roles, or do you think he kind of gets that cushy halfback role when the real stuff happens?
Well, they've said that they want to just settle him on halfback. So if you take them by their word, then I'm going to go with that. But like you said, at Richmond, he was Mr. Fix-It.
Yeah, he was a little bit on the weekend as well.
There, and West Coast have got plenty of holes. So I think Liam Baker might find himself, maybe not immediately, but halfway through the year, starting to adapt his game style a little bit, just to help out Minnie there.
Yeah, well, I think they've moved Liam Duggan into the midfield a little bit more, it looks. So I think the hole is there for in the halfback line for him to fill. And I'm like you, I'm going to trust what they've said in the preseason. I think there's probably just a practice game and let's try him here and see what he looks like with this mix or whatever, because it's our last chance before the real stuff happens. So I think it's probably more something like that.
Got the dub
that was happening. Yeah, true. 2 points, wasn't it? And then the other one I liked for West Coast, there wasn't a lot that I really liked, but Brady Hoff, the 68 points, but he just looked like a more mature player back there. Like looked like a bit more solid. Didn't look like a little kid out there as much. And I think Yo being out helps him because like Duggan spends more time in the midfield. So hopefully he can just capitalise on that early and put up some good scores as well. But like I said, the only other thing was like Hutchinson was playing on the wing. That wing role is real, but I just don't think it's going to be fantasy friendly for a player like him. Let's look at the North Melbourne players. Tom Powell, lock him in for a breakout year.
Yep, I had him locked in last year, and he probably did break out. But
got 78.
He's going to go
pretty
again.
Good. Yeah. Hasn't gone under 100 in any of the preseason games, I don't think. So pretty big signs there.
He's such a good player.
Yeah, he is.
I just hope he gets opportunity. 80% CBA, and he could be an absolute weapon.
Well, that's the other thing though. Like Darling, sorry, not Darling.
LDU.
No, sorry. Luke Park was out of this game.
Yes.
And then so that probably eats up a bit. Simkin was out too.
I think.
I reckon they rotate though.
Yeah, I think 50 and 50 probably, or 50 and 30 maybe in terms of split.
Something like that. I reckon it maybe affects Will Phillips more, those guys coming back in, than anything though, because he...
Depends if they want to play that Phillips as a tagger, though, doesn't it? Which they've liked in the past. So. Yeah, it's going to be... It's like for the first time in ages, Wardlaw's got to come back in the side as well. Like they've got such a... There's no shortage of talent at all, which is what makes me laugh when the draftees come in and
they lost the West Coast.
We all sort of sit there and go, oh, look at this draftee last year and the year before and the year before that did all this, but eventually that's got to come to an end.
Yeah, exactly. Then moving on, Jack Darling's the next one on the list. 89 points. Like he's just being used as a backup ruck and has been really solid so far this preseason. So I just think he could be a late streamer option as a forward. Colin McKercher spent a lot more time back this week. Still a little bit forward, but people are saying on the wing. But I think it's just because he runs up and down from wherever he starts. Because I watched a fair bit of this and I didn't see him starting on the wing. It was more Bailey Scott, Dill Stevens.
Yep.
And who was the other one? Finn O'Sullivan. That's probably the next one I need to talk about as well. He was... Finn O'Sullivan looked awesome, really. I didn't think he kind of had this kind of game in him, but I think it's just like he's got such a high work rate on that wing, kind of just allows him to push into spots and be, handy. And he's got a good disposal. But they were saying he's going to be like a low possession guy, but I really liked him in this game as well.
I'm choosing to believe them, Heff. I think he probably is a low possession guy.
Well, the thing is,
accumulate.
In this game is good, but remember in the preseason, your little hunch was like, you think that North might use him as a halfback flanker? Because they've done that with like McKercher, they've done it with Sheezel.
It wasn't a hunch, it was just...
No, it was like a bit of
common sense, really. But
he did that a bit in this game. Like he spends a little bit of time on the half-back line.
But that's exactly what they've got. They've got plenty of half-backs. They've been developing them for bloody 9 years.
Yeah, but when you think about it though, they're going to play Sheezel midfield. They're going to play McKercher probably forward and probably split between forward and kind of back as well. Like below that, they've got Darcy Tucker. They're going to bring Fisher back in. Yeah. Like Finn O'Sullivan could do it. Like still, I think because like he did it in this game.
Well, if he does land on that halfback, we're absolutely laughing.
And even like in the Sheezel year, like if I remember correctly, they played him forward in the preseason games, and then come round one, he was on the half-back line. So
that's I like that.
Have a think about it. Have a think about it.
Nice.
But like regardless of where he ends up, I think people that have drafted him so far, and he's gone pretty early in a lot of drafts, would be feeling a lot more comfortable with it after seeing that performance on the weekend, I think.
He's going to be a great player.
Yeah. Moving on to the last game of the round, the Fremantle versus Melbourne game. Corey Wagner did his thing off the halfback line, but I'm just not sure if he's selected come round one or at least when they get a few different players back. The one that I liked in there was Matthew Johnson. I think he's the next guy in with Hayden Young out. We've been talking about Erasmus and Murphy Reed's been getting a bit of a hype up in there as well, but I think it's going to be Matthew Johnson who's the next inside guy this season.
I think that's who they like most.
Yeah.
Yep.
So lock him in for a decent role, at least until Hayden Young comes back. Nathan O'Driscoll, always been a fan of him because I just think he could be one of the better scoring fantasy wingmen. Just really needs to stay injury free, but he's had the 2 big scores over the preseason, so liking him at the moment. I gave him back for because we've got rookie rules. He was an under 50 player for me, and I couldn't fit him because my 2 rookies were Jace Burgoyne and Massimo D'Ambrosio, so I kept those 2. And I've given him away for maybe, I think it was like a 9th round pick in our league. But I feel like now I've probably given away too cheaply. I could have got more on the back of these performances, but
wouldn't stew on it.
It's better than not having anything for him and putting him back in the pool, which is where he would have gone. And we only had one guy who was interested as well, so that probably doesn't help. Murphy Reed was the other one I talked about before. 60 points from 30 and had 30% CBAs playing a mid forward role. he just might be ahead of Erasmus. That's the only thing I'm thinking there, because Erasmus only played the last quarter as well.
Yeah, well, those two you probably have circled as potential subs, I think.
Yeah, and they're fighting it out for that last spot, I think, in the side as well, Erasmus and Reed. And I think they might lean towards Reed, because who doesn't like drafting the new shiny toy, the draft pick, you know? Then moving on to Melbourne, Stephen May's a freak, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. What was
100 and something, 117 points
ridiculous.
In this game. It's like kick-ins, chip around, switches, just like in it all, you know?
Yeah, no, I put him straight on my side in classic Heff. He was phenomenal.
I had him going backwards this year, Stephen May, but I think he's actually going to maintain that kind of, like, he could average 80 quite easily, because he had two, I think I think he had a 2 and like a 35 when he was subbed off at quarter time.
Has he not averaged 80 for a number of years now?
I think it's been a while, yeah, because he's so old now. I think he's like 33, 34. But like, yeah, like he just keeps getting it done. And I think he's just getting better as he gets older, because they chip around so much back there. He does the kick outs.
Doesn't move as much.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he kind of just stays there. It's awesome.
I wish I got him. Little pickup.
Yeah, I picked him up late last year and he was awesome. Went way earlier this year, but yeah. Then Ed Langdon, he was getting a lot more inside midfield time. It's kind of just like interesting though, because like Harry Sharp, Xavier Lindsay, Jack Billings are kind of the wings at Melbourne. And Billings does score well out there, but I'm not sure we see Sharp come round one. So like I think Langdon might go back to the midfield and they roll with a tighter three of Petrarca, Viney, Oliver, and probably Langford.
And Rivers
going in there as well. Yeah, it's tricky, isn't it?
Stocks down maybe after yesterday a bit in terms of midfield usage, but that's what they've been saying all pre-season. Another thing they've been saying all pre-season, Heff, is that Langdon would be in the centre bounce.
Yeah.
So is this just what we need to come to expect? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I think he's one of the best wingmen in the comp.
That's my thoughts.
And they've got the cattle inside to get it done anyway. But
because they're also playing Sparrow in there a bit too. So like
a little bit, but less more than I thought. Tom Sparrow, they said a couple of weeks ago that they want him to play that Alex Neil-Bullen role. So and he plays it well. A sprinkle of CBAs, but I think it'll mostly be that connecting role at half forward.
So Langdon come round one. Is he a CBA mid or is he on the wing?
I think he's a CBA mid.
There we go.
I think they're going to back in some of their younger blokes that they've drafted over the last few years.
Does that mean we see Petrarca play forward a bit more, perhaps?
Oh, did you see him yesterday?
Bits and pieces, yeah.
Oh, I wouldn't play him forward. Yeah. Phenomenal.
Yeah. So, yeah, that brings me back to Tom Sparrow, I guess. Yeah, playing that Neil-Bullen role. Had the 6 tackles, pressure forward, then goes in as like a defensive mid for a few CBAs as well. Should get that forward status. Could be a pretty handy forward too for your Keeper League teams as well this year. And the Jake Bowie, he's had 2 good preseason games as well. He's got that good leg. Had the equal most kick-ins for Melbourne along with May. Just how does he fit in with like Windsor, McVie, Salem, May? We're all probably going to score okay back there. Do you think he's a lock for best 22 scoring well, or do you think he battles?
Oh, I think he's probably going to just score okay with those names that you mentioned. I think they're all going to take a hit. They're all going to get a bit of a bump on any given day.
Yeah. And the last one, I guess of note, a lot of people talking about Xavier Lindsay, the draftee, maybe playing half-back and scoring well. Looks like he's firmly locked on the wing. He's probably going to score pretty similar to like Windsor did last year. I think he's not getting that half-back cruisy role. Anyway, we only got a few listener questions. We'll get through them pretty quickly because we have ticked over the hour mark for this episode. Mitch Finn 95 asks, I have the 4th spot in the startup Keeper League draft. I presume for a long time I was in the golden seat. What are the pros and cons of taking him over another option?
So I want to hear your thoughts on this, Heff, because Gordon was what, top 3 keeper pick
in basically
pretty much every league.
In my ranks, he is either, if you're contending, I think he's 4th. Well, he was before the injury, and I have to do my re-ranks tomorrow. And then I think for rebuilding teams, he was a bit higher as well.
So you are pick 7 in a keeper.
Yeah.
And Errol's sitting there.
100%. Every day of the week I'm taking that pick. Yeah, 100%.
Yep.
Like, in a keeper league, you've got a few months with no Errol. But hopefully you can get by, scrape into finals, and you've got a primo scorer back there.
Because it's only, 2 months?
Something like that, yeah. I haven't really checked the report, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Now, the other thing you think about it, like the other guys that would go in that range, you got Sarong, that's someone you could go, but I think I'd rather Errol over him long term.
Butters,
he's injured as well. Bontempelli's injured. as well. So, like, other guys that are going to go on that range are also injured.
Starting to drop off, isn't it?
Tom Green's injured. Like, well, you might as well just go Errol, you know? Yep. So, and then, so I'd still be taking him with that pick 4. Wouldn't be surprised if you aren't, but you got to think about, you're probably just going to be taking another injured guy in that range unless you go like a Zach Merritt or something like that.
In terms of pros and cons probably...
You're going to miss 2 months of footy.
Yeah, 2 months of footy. Maybe there's another guy who's better than him. But in terms of pros, you've got 110 mid.
Just try to pick up Angus Sheldrick later on in the draft and cover it for a few weeks. That's probably the best.
Would you be surprised if Goulden was a 110 half-backer in 9-10 years' time as well?
I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes his career something like that, a real cushy role.
Take him. Long time.
At Mortada, which ageing mids are worth targeting for someone in the championship window in the Trags? He's got like Viney here. Like, yep, I'd go Viney. Viney, Libber, Ward, maybe not, as I mentioned before.
Libber, I think. And Libber Cogs sure. Maybe as well with that opportunity.
Absolutely, yeah. If you look at like around the clubs, like you will get some mids cheaper because they are aging, but like at the same time, like they're generally already in the contending teams anyway. So
I'll throw you one that's not a midfielder, but currently is.
Yeah,
Patrick Dangerfield.
Yeah,
I think he'll pick up forward status, and he might be one of those stalwarts that you just keep at the back end of your forward line. And
100% agree.
Might pump out a couple of 90s, 100s for you.
I've got him in one league, and like I was looking at it, I'm like, I do have a lack of forwards, but then I look at it, I've got Sparrow in there, I've got Dangerfield in there. I'm probably going to have 2 extra forwards that are going to be pretty decent.
Yeah, we mentioned a few, haven't we? Yeah. Peatling, Ashcroft. He might pick it up. I wouldn't be surprised.
But in terms of the older people, I do like Dangerfield as someone that wasn't listed there because he's going to get that forward status. And then he's got another question. Finlayson, is the role real or just a placeholder? Give a definitive answer, Lou.
I hope it's real. I want to be sitting here in a year's time with Jeremy Finlayson discussing his.
To be fair, I would rather Finlayson in our side than Asava Radigalea in that kind of role.
I would rather Tom Cleary, who he delisted with a year on his contract. But I think it's probably a placeholder for Burton is what I am hoping. Maybe that's hopium.
Well, no, because like you think about it though, like you've got Aaliyah as your main kind of key. You will probably go with Zerk Thatcher when he's back. Do you bring Asava in, or do you play Finlayson as that third tool?
Finlayson was slow. Like he got the pill, but geez, he had miles of space.
Asava's not quick though either. And we played him most of the year.
It was traffic cone sort of areas. So I think he just. Right role, right time, but I wouldn't be banking on Finlayson.
Yeah, and I think...
Pick him up really late if you want to take
If we do play him, he plays that swingman role like Asava did anyway. Like, you go forward for some of the games as well where he's not going to score as well. So, probably not 120
is he that,
plus real role.
Soldo played on the weekend, but is he that second row?
Maybe. That's the other thing. So there's so many places he can go where it's... Yeah, he's kind of... will patch up so many jobs, so I wouldn't rely on... The scoring is not real, I don't think, but the role could be real. Like, yeah, that's the thing. And then Liam AFLW Fantasy. Desire Wangan and Miller spent time after quarter time forward of centre. Does that continue in the real season with 0 healthy forwards at St Kilda? I think he was more inside mid because he had CBAs and stuff like that. So I think you probably just notice him in the forward 50 a bit more pushing up. And I think purely it's just like trying things.
Like you said, they were just trying things. Yeah. He started back there. He was taking the kick-ins. He was, getting involved in the chains out of defensive 50. And then I think Saints just went, stuff this. We'll try a few different things and move players around, try different magnets. And, I think that's what we saw. So
yeah. And he's their best distributor. They're getting smashed. Let's chuck him in there and just see what he can do.
Why wouldn't you give it to Nas? I mean, he's just the absolute star of that side. So
I don't think he's going to be playing inside mid though. Come round.
No. Don't put your bloody Rolls Royce.
Yeah, exactly.
At half back and inside mid.
Yeah, put him half back. Let him just distribute. Anyways, that'll wrap it up.
That might be Warming Sinclair's spot for round 1 anyway.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, true. That's probably the midfielder they need to go in there. Anyways, let's wrap it up. Thanks heaps, Louis, for getting on the podcast. You got another podcast to record tonight, don't you?
Yes, I've got Pod in about an hour. So
cool.
Be good.
Tthanks for doing 2 in a day.
No worries,
I battle to do 2 of them. But yeah, no problems. Good to have you in. Probably going to catch you on Friday, aren't I? We're going to have dinner.
Friday, yes. The district. Plenty of beers and a bit of footy with Bales.
Yeah, so if you're in the town, come to the district. Come say good day.
Come to the district.
Yeah, it's got a big screen to watch the footy. I think that's what the plan is, catching up with Bales and a few of the other fantasy names. So just doxed ourselves there. probably be mobbed because we have so many fans. Would you say that?
Yeah. If you feel like buying us a bit, by all means.
Anyways, thanks for listening. Get around our stuff on the socials at Keeper League Pod on all of those. Check out the Supercoach Championship rings. They do make AFL Fantasy rings for your leagues as well. So check out the links in the description there. And thanks to Keeper Fantasy for looking after this show and also just providing us with an awesome platform so we can play these Keeper Leagues on. Cheers for listening, and we'll talk to you next week. See ya.
Bye.